Welcome to Exploring Possibilities. I'm Cheryl Sitz. I'm a holistic spiritual speaker and coach, the founder of Journey of Possibilities, and your host week after week for the show. Since 2012, we have been exploring possibilities and shifting perspectives in holistic spiritual ways. I want to make sure you never miss a show, so be sure to subscribe. You can do that on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, or Google Play, and rate us so others will find the show too. We'll continue in just a moment.
Have you ever gone to a social media seminar and you have the online experts telling you, get a blog, get a website, get on social media, all this other stuff. By the time you're done with that seminar, that online expert is very good at frying your brain. And the funny part is, you come back home, you get in front of the computer, and you're lost. Hi, I am Mario with Tech Life Balance. I see this all the time. You spend so much money and still don't know what is going on with your online presence. And you probably don't need all of that. Let me go ahead and translate Geek to English for you and show you what you really need, because you don't need it all. You probably only need a few components. You have a great message out there, and I would like to hear it, and I definitely want to help you put it out there. I am Mario Rosales with TechLifeBalance.net. I produce this podcast because I love distributing messages. Let me help you distribute your message.
Who are you? Why are you here? What wonders and opportunities await you beyond physical death? What happened millennia ago to create the damaged earth and fractured societies you see around you? Empowering, enlightening, internationally acclaimed, the Joseph Communications books offer answers to these questions. Spiritual, concise, contemporary, non-denominational, the communications originate from Joseph, a highly evolved discarnate spirit concerned for you and the future of the planet and its peoples. The words of Joseph and his soul group give you the power to bring light and change into your own life and the lives of others, and to restore the earth. Available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats, the communications can be ordered today at www.thejosephcommunications.com, and also from Amazon and other major booksellers. All proceeds are used for further publishing and advertising, and to make the communications available worldwide.
As fun as it is to be together on the show, I'd love to have you join me for an event. You can find those on my website at journeyofpossibilities.com. Just click the events tab. We've got online events, live events, always something going on. So I hope to see you there as well. Now for today's guest. I found him through a friend and former guest, sound healer David Kennett. Doron Geber was born in South Africa. He is an international speaker, a breakthrough coach, and a shadow guide. He's done life coaching, performance coaching for top-level athletes, business, executive, and leadership coaching. He's a natural-born teacher, right? And now he does what he calls breakthrough matrix coaching. This uses shadow guidance to reveal negative, unconscious, there's the key word, beliefs that we formed about ourselves before the age of 10. And from that, he creates breakthroughs in unconscious blocks and patterns around personal income, intimate relationships, and even chronic health issues. I know after today's show, you're going to want to check out his YouTube teachings and his website, DoronGeber.com. Welcome, Doron.
Thank you so much for having me, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. I am so excited that you're here with us today. I was saying before we started the show, I'm actually a little starstruck. You're a pretty sharp guy.
Well, I'm flattered.
Well, good. How does a guy go from life in South Africa to such a level of conscious awareness that I rarely encounter? How did that happen for you?
Well, it's a really long story to try concise into an answer, but if I had to, I've always been obsessed with the human mind. I remember at the age of like 21 or 22, pondering on the meaning of the word realization, that something would happen inside a person's mind that would change how they saw the world and how they perceived the world, yet nothing on the outside would change. And these were just my ponderings. And I remember I had a little Nokia phone, and when you start up the phone, it's got like a greeting message. So my greeting message was realization in big capital letters. So as far back as I can remember, I've always been obsessed with the human mind. And the way that I like to explain it is, imagine an architect sitting inside a very, architecturally elaborate type of building and trying to imagine how it was built, and, the support beams on the internal framework, so to speak. And that's sort of really how I felt like living in this mind, I've always been on this journey of philosophy and understanding laws and principles, My mind was always just drawn to the principles behind things. And then much later in my journey, around the age of about 28 or so, my dad had just passed away, and a friend of mine approached me, within about 7 or 8 months after my dad had passed away. And he said to me that he never told me about this organization called the Mankind Project, because I was so involved in taking care of my dad. My dad had a stroke when I was much younger, and he was in a wheelchair. My sister and I used to take care of him. And after he passed away, he said, now that you've got time and you've got, you don't have that responsibility anymore, there's this organization called the Mankind Project that teaches men. He didn't say this teaches men emotional literacy. He just says it's a self-development organization, and they run this weekend, which is a bit of an adventure. And I just said, stop talking. I mean, I didn't do any research. I didn't check it out. It just sounded like a fun thing to do over a weekend. So I say this because in retrospect, I got quite involved in the organization, and there are men that really go through it with a fine comb. So I went on this weekend, and it turned out to be a healing weekend, much like a Quest or a Landmark or these type of weekends of self-discovery that are process-driven and facilitated by extremely skilled facilitators of emotional process work. And I can't really go into details because it's still it's an organization that is functioning around the world. But essentially, this is an organization that teaches emotional literacy to men, provides men with a framework for self-development for when times are good and when times are bad, offers men a community of support for accountability and authenticity and integrity, which are they're such basic building blocks of character. But, my dad never told me about these things sort of flat out. This is what you do. This is how you do it. This is when, this is why. He just sort of modeled them for me. And I believe a lot of men have the same, or at best or at worst, none of it. And this organization just sort of, really spelled things out in a way that's irrefutable, undeniable, unignorable. And one of the two greatest things that a man gets out of these organizations, I mean, it offers a hell of a lot, but the two greatest things, at least the things that meant the most to me, was number one, a sense of mission, why am I here? And number two, the concept of shadow. Mm-hmm. The part of the mind that I hide or repress and deny. Yeah. So working with this organization, staying very involved and being part of the healing and learning the processes, and just really observing how these facilitators of emotional process work were just these were gurus of the mind. These were guys that were just so skilled in what I call the primitive generic nature of the mind, and there has to be a generic nature to the mind. That's how people can learn books and then work on people, but also that there's a primitive part. There's a part to the mind that is primitive, that a sophisticated ego would deny. Or that a person that considers themselves to be mature would deny an immature part, but it's there. And the basis of all of this, and I'm really getting to the nutshell or the essence, is a wounded child. Mm-hmm. So becoming aware of my own wounded child and being a massive extrovert, I didn't buy into it. I didn't buy into this, that there's a part of me that I don't like, or that I can't stand, or that I deny. I didn't buy into it. It's like, no, that's not true. And just staying involved and learning more and more to listen to myself and to listen to the part of me that's wounded, the child in me that's wounded, the little kid that thinks that he's done something wrong. Mm-hmm. That was really the beginning of everything. And I really stayed involved in this organization for 6 years. And it was in this organization that I, well, first of all, like I said, I got really, really, really skilled. But the greatest part of my learning was in facilitating integration after these weekend training adventures. So there'd be a 10-week integration. And in this 10-week integration, men would come and we'd work for 4 hours at a time, once a week for 10 weeks. So there was 40 hours of facilitation after these weekends, which were in themselves process-driven. So there was a culmination of massive skill on the weekend, and then a gradual upskill for 10 weeks. And I did like 6 of those over the 6 years. And in the learning and the doing and the being and the learning and the teaching and the being and the doing, there was just this growth, and there was just this modeling. And in so doing, I was able to number one in life, make my way to the bottom of my barrel, find myself at a dead end job. But that ultimately, that's where everything happens, is at the bottom of the barrel. But so I felt like my consciousness was growing, but my life was falling apart once I had my awakening. Yes. This was in 2009. And then just sort of staying involved with this framework of just like, this is truth, this is integrity, this is personal truth, this is how you speak your truth, this is how you communicate impact, this is how you communicate your feelings, this is how you communicate directly, this is how you listen, really listen, as opposed to just waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can say what you want to say. You know, this is how you engage in meaningful conversation, and this is how, you know what I mean? Like all of these concepts of how to behave like the real me and not like the me that I think that you want to see, you know? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I was able to have a financial breakthrough, which was like that was my blockage, was a financial one. And just through sticking with living in integrity and maintaining my peace and owning my projections, and just growing in myself in as much as learning how to perceive people in a way that doesn't disturb my peace, you know?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that
was
is
like
a
the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's really it, you know?
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing it for that. I was doing it because, you know, all of my obsession over the mind and all of my self-development, it was all intellectual, mm-hmm. you know? It was all intellectual. I was an expert at these books, but I still had rage, and I was still broke, and I was still egotistical. And when I say egotistical, just like full of myself, you know? This is what I do, and like, you know, my way or the highway type of thing. And yet I was broken, angry, and right, you know, I had to be right everywhere. I had to be right. And just by learning how to develop my character and how to just like to control my urges and how to forgive myself, you know, and these were concepts that I not only wasn't aware of, but I denied when they were taught to me.
That's so interesting. What took you past the denial? Just continuing to stay in the path?
Just staying involved in the Mankind Project, because I saw what happened when people were developing. Like on the weekend, the weekend is a massive awakening, transformative experience, healing experience. It's very profound, and it's completely cognitive. It's like it's a series of the most important questions that you could ever get asked in your life, you know. And with nowhere to run, is complete separation. So it's like it's a retreat. And then just watching how people would start the weekend and end the weekend, and then teaching the integration and then getting good at the processes, and it all just made sense. And I just found that I was really, really, really good at it and understanding things because of my previous knowledge, that I just stayed involved. But again, I thought to myself, let me try this way, because this way is proven. There's a whole community of men that are trying to do this right. Let me get good at that. Because up until now, all of my self-development was all intellectual. There was nothing practical about anything that I was learning. I was trying my best, but in bad situations, anger would be anger and it would be justified. So when it was good, it was easy to self-develop. But when it was difficult, when life was getting too difficult and I would react and behave the way that I thought that I needed to behave, then all my self-development would go out the window. So, I mean, what's the point? And
we
so
see
I
that a lot.
decided, okay, let's learn how to be patient and how to be humble and how to forgive and how to walk a path of truth instead of opportunity. And it took a while, but it finally clicked. Sometimes I'm a fast learner, other times I'm a slow learner.
Well, we see a lot, where we can be the most wonderful spiritual being when it's all going great, but when it falls apart, look out. So you said something really powerful in there when you said when it all falls apart, that's when it starts, that's where the stuff happens or something. You want to explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. There are so many esoterics that I can go into in this part alone. But essentially, the bottom of the barrel, there is no barrel. So how can there be the bottom of a barrel that doesn't exist? That's sort of what it feels like, because the bottom of the barrel is where it's like the greatest analogy for scraping, when you're so desperate that whatever was in the barrel, it's at the very bottom and you're scraping it where all the sediment is or all the guck or whatever. And that's like the epitome, so to speak, at least in a mental depiction of what when things are at their worst, because at the bottom of the barrel there actually is no more down, right? So the thing about the bottom of the barrel is that there is a gift there, and anyone that's been to the bottom of the barrel knows the gift. It's where a decision gets made that's so powerful and so resolute about how you're going to change your life and how you're going to live your life for the rest of your life, that it doesn't get broken ever. But things have got to get that bad, it's called, or I call it, models of reality. Buckminster Fuller also uses the same word, models of reality. It's when a model of reality is basically a map of the world that you put together in your own mind about how to get to certain places and certain results and how to deal with things. Mm-hmm. It's never accurate because it's always based on perception until you study laws. But my model of reality was leading me, how to do life according to me. That was leading me to all the wrong choices and all the wrong decisions based on all the wrong motives that I thought were things that I wanted. And then ultimately, when all of my best decision making led me to the worst position that I could ever be in, I had to realize that whatever was important to me, I got wrong. So things had to fall apart. That means that all my priorities and things that I thought were important to me, everything had to fall apart. And until the bottom of the barrel, they're not falling apart because that's the only thing that I was holding onto for dear life. Paradoxically.
Yeah, I get
that. So at the bottom of the barrel is where things they can't get any worse. And at the bottom of the barrel is when a person, I'll say I, was not willing to tolerate any more of that I was experiencing or living. So up until that point, I was involved in some form of caring or, a certain result that I needed. For me specifically, it was a dead-end job. I was opening and closing a gate at a private safety deposit box facility. So it's a place where you go, to open a box with 2 keys, stuff that's private. So this was a private facility, and I was the guy opening and closing the gate. That's not the job that I applied for, but that's what manifested later on in the job. And it was literally the worst experience of my life because I had quite an entrepreneurial history before that. I was never successful, but I was extremely busy and creative and achieved really great things. Never made money for myself. Everyone else got paid except for me. And that's how a lot of people with money blocks will experience business, that everyone's getting paid except for me, damn it. Everyone's getting paid. Suppliers are getting paid. Employees are getting paid. Customers are getting what they want. Everyone's getting what they want, except I'm not getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of that. But then once I was at this job, I was like, how on God's earth did I create this dead end job? How did I create this? It's like that's the one thing I think that I had internalized very, very, very well, was that I created this. So I wasn't saying why me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the greatest thing that I had internalized, or maybe the only thing really that I internalized, is that I made this. And I was so perplexed at how I made this, working at a job that didn't require any of my mental capacity, working for guys that didn't have the leadership that I was looking for in superiors or in bosses. And I slipped into a depressive anxiety for about a year. This was in 2011, and it was really, 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 really tough. So if anyone's listening, that's there. If you're in a place where, whether it's a relationship or a job, and you're hating every moment, and you're waking up and you're begging God to make it stop, then the only way it's going to stop is if you stop it. Whatever you think is justified for you to be there is an illusion, and it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. And you have to realize that. You have to realize that nothing good is going to come to you when you're being miserable all day. Nothing. It doesn't matter how much you hope. You have to create a space, a day, a morning, a wake up, whatever. You have to create a life where you're not miserable. You have to. And if that means walking away from things, if that means letting go of things, you have to say to hell with it, no more. And that's what happened to me at the bottom of my barrel.
And that almost makes it sound like the bottom of the barrel is a little bit better than when you're on your way down well, there is no barrel, but you know what I'm saying, figuratively speaking. It's almost less effective to be somewhere in the middle, because you're still going, well, maybe I like it, maybe I don't. At least at the bottom, you know you're done.
Oh, you are so right, Cheryl. I have said this, I don't know how many times. I am so grateful that I got the gift at the bottom of the barrel. I am so grateful, because so many people do whatever they can. And I suppose so did I, but I didn't succeed at it. So many people manage to stay in a suffering that is acceptable to them.
Yes.
You know, like, it's bad, but I can live with this.
Yep.
And I'm so grateful that I got thrusted beneath that. And that I simply could not, because once you get to the bottom of the barrel, you don't go back to a comfortable level of suffering. You go way beyond that. You soar, because the decision at the bottom of the barrel, you know, once you live by that decision, there's nothing else. There's nothing else. You don't buy into the fear anymore. You don't buy into whatever was going on that this is why I need to do this, you know, I have to be in this relationship, or I have to have this paycheck to pay bills. That's not what life's about.
You know, it would almost sound to someone listening like we're speaking law of attraction type stuff about creating our reality. But I know for a fact from following your work that you're very different than the law of attraction. Do you want to explain kind of how you're different than the typical law of attraction stuff they may have heard out there?
Sure. Well, first off, the law of attraction is not a law. It's a phenomenon that occurs, but it's not a law unto itself. And if it was a law unto itself, then it would work for everyone the same way. You know, it would work for everyone the same way. And the fact that a person can use the law of attraction, quote unquote, steps in visualization and manifest some things but not manifest others means that it's not a law. You know, It's as simple as that. If you can, if you want, like, let's say you want a red book and you manifest a red book, but you want $5,000, but you can't manifest $5,000 doing the exact same thing, then it can't be a law. And if you say then you're attached to this and attached to that, then that's not the law of attraction. Those are other laws. I was big into the law of attraction, massive, and I was doing all of those things, and I was visualizing, and I was doing everything, and nothing was working with money. Nothing. And then and then at that dead-end job, I made a vow that I was going to learn how I manifested that hellhole, how I manifested that nightmare of a reality. And that's what I did. And all of my research pointed to primarily the 7 Hermetic laws, but the fact that none of it pointed to the law of attraction, because it's not a law, so it can't be studied. The law of attraction is a phenomenon that occurs within 2 laws. The one law, and I explain this in really easy to understand language. The first law is the law of polarity, and the law of polarity governs positive and negatives. So without going into the esoteric definitions of positive and negative, I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. Positive does not mean bad, positive does not mean good, and negative does not mean bad, or else people would want to chop off the bad parts of batteries. But in the law of polarity, you've got polar attraction, what we call magnetic attraction. So if you were to take 2 magnets and hold them next to each other, but not let them touch, you'd feel these 2 magnets wanting to touch. And that wanting to touch, that force that's trying to bring them together, that's a force called attraction. Okay? But that's magnetic or polar attraction, where a positive is attracted to a negative. There is another type of attraction that happens within the law of vibration. And this is resonant attraction. All right. So, for instance, on a guitar, if you take 2 guitars that are tuned and you strum the one string, because it's in a frequency that's the same as the string on the other guitar, that other string will begin to vibrate simply because of the law of resonance. And that is resonant attraction. So when 2 high frequency individuals come together, that is resonant attraction, like how you and I met, Cheryl. That's resonant attraction. Whereas the way victims and rescuers meet in life, that's polar attraction. And we want to be free of the polar attraction, and we want to open up to the resonant attraction. So the way that you do that is not by focusing on attraction. You have to understand the other laws. You have to understand that visualization is the law of gender, where the law of gender is the law that governs creation through the interaction of male and female. So to put that principle into flesh, or into applicable examples, when a farmer puts a seed into the ground, is the exact same in principle way that when a man ejaculates into a woman, and it's the exact same thing as putting a thought into the conscious mind. That's called the male giving. The female receiving is the earth enveloping the seed, the same way that an egg envelops a sperm, or the same way that the female envelops the male, the same way that a comprehension envelops an idea. It's all the same law of gender, and as long as there is consistency and there is germination and gestation in a woman, that's pregnancy, in the ground, that's watering the ground consistently with water. In the mind, it's continuously thinking about a specific outcome, attaching emotion. This is all the law of gender. And when it's ready to manifest into your reality, just like when the baby's ready to come out and the seed has turned into a sprout that's ready to break through and become a sapling, or when an idea is ready to manifest into your life, it does so with a law of cause and effect. It makes its way to you. It doesn't just appear in front of you like it does in Star Trek. It doesn't just happen. There's a whole story of how it comes about, and that's the law of cause and effect. And so these are all these laws that govern manifestation, and the way that what you wanted actually comes to you through gender, through polarity, through cause and effect. That whole way of how it came to you is called attraction, but it's not a law.
I can't believe you just covered all those laws in that amount of time. That's phenomenal. And I think I'm sort of hanging on to your words because I've watched your videos, and thank you so much for putting some of your teachings on YouTube where everyone can check those out and get a better understanding of what you're referring to. There's so much more than just, I think I'll put something on my vision board and it'll show up next year, right? I mean, there's just a lot going on there.
That's right. That's right. Because if you have a blockage, an unconscious blockage, for instance, if you've got a blockage in the area of money or personal income, it doesn't matter how much you visualize. It doesn't matter how much you affirm. It doesn't matter how much you write down stuff. It's not going to come. If you've got a relationship blockage, same thing. You can be the best visualizer and the best affirmer. But if the cause of the unconscious blockage is not dealt with, then it's that blind spot is always going to be there, and it's always going to feel like someone else has got control in that specific area of life. So to just say that the law of attraction works on all things is not just an incorrect statement. It's completely misleading. It's false. It's based on a flawed understanding of the laws, or rather, just no understanding of the laws.
Well, in a way, I would expect that would be a relief, because if we think that we've just got to work harder and harder and harder, we're not doing it right yet, we're not working hard enough yet, we could work ourselves into the ground and never get there, doing the same old thing over and over. So there's a relief factor of knowing that, oh, it's not just that I'm not working hard enough at it, but then there's also kind of a scary factor of, oh my goodness, then what's wrong that I can't get there, and what do I need to do to find it, especially if it's unconscious. That's where working with someone like you can really be helpful, right?
Not just helpful, crucial.
So it sounds like you've kind of blended these laws with what you've experienced and worked in the Mankind Project and the wounded child. So you help the wounded child find the wound, and when you heal that, then the laws can do their magic, right?
Well, you are correct in what you're saying. I can't say that I blended anything with that of the Mankind Project. The Mankind Project is an organization that has consolidated a lot of wisdom, but essentially they're teaching Jungian psychology. It's nothing new. The wounded child is not a new concept. The shadow is not a new concept. These concepts are widely known anywhere in the Jungian psychology world, or the awakening world, based on Eastern philosophy of laws, of balance, of equality and harmony between all realms. So what I will say that I have done specifically is that I've taken shadow work to a whole new level. That I will say that my philosophy of breakthrough that results in real breakthroughs in the areas of money, relationships, and health, or personal income, intimate relationships, and chronic health issues. These results, real life results, come about simply primarily due to the shadow guidance, which is in my opinion an advanced form of shadow work.
How so? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. In the shadow work community, a lot of stress is given to the awareness of shadow. In fact, I think to a large degree that's the beginning, and I won't say the end of it, but the awareness of shadow is really all that people can do. And not just have the awareness of shadow, but understand that within the shadow, the wound of the shadow is where a person is the most accomplished, right? So the gift that a person has is born in the wound. That's widely known in the shadow community. Not everybody on earth knows this, but within the shadow community, those that are au fait and are skilled know this very well. Where I am the most wounded, I'm the most accomplished. Yeah. So I'm a very eloquent speaker today, but as a child, I started very badly around the age of 6 till about 8, I think. And it came and it went. I didn't go to therapy for it or to any type of rehab. But it did something to me on a level of belief that somehow miraculously created an adult that speaks not just well, better than the average person. And I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but I have to have the self-awareness to ask myself, where did this ability to speak better than other people come from? You know, if there's a high-flying arrow, it had to originate in the bow. But if there's a particularly high-flying arrow that's higher than others in a specific area, then what's true about that specific arrow's time in the bow in comparison to the other arrows in the air? So there was a stronger force that propelled it there. This is known. The polarities are known within the shadow community. What I've done is that I have given emphasis to the polarity of shadow. which is commonly referred to as gold. But in terms of metaphysics, I believe that because the human being is a source of energy, just like a battery, the battery by natural law, has to have a positive pole and a negative pole. So if the human being is a source of energy like the battery is, then surely the human being would have a negative pole and a positive pole as well. And it turns out that it's exactly what happens. Just the negative pole gets taken care of, sort of by design, by divine design. That's how we're designed, is to create this negative pole already, and that happens in the form of the shadow. But then there should be a positive pole that puts in place, and this is where the shadow work sort of ends. Be aware of your shadow, understand that that's where your greatest gifts are, and be okay with it. So that's a really, really, really good start, and it's brought humanity to where we are, and it's a really good thing for the most part. But there's another part. There has to be a positive pole. There has to be, in order for the battery to work in its full capacity, you know. And in my process, that's what I do with people. In my shadow guidance, you leave the shadow guidance with a negative pole in place, and a positive pole in place as well, which is, I believe it's revolutionary, because it's creating breakthroughs like popcorn. It's a set process, and I coach groups of 10 at a time, and in about week 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 12, breakthroughs start happening literally like popcorn. So that's what differentiates my shadow guidance from conventional shadow work or even advanced shadow work.
So can you give us just a simple example of what that looks like, where you take it further?
Sure. So whether or not the shadow community practices this, the shadow is a batch of negative beliefs about the self. And to be more specific, they are I ams. Okay. So typically there would be beliefs formed before the age of 10 that sound like I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm an idiot, or I'm useless, or I'm a failure, I'm weak, I don't matter, I'm pathetic, I'm disgusting, I'm broken, I'm unsafe, things like that. Now, when a person is not aware of what I've just said, that these beliefs have a specific place in your mind, until that moment, these are just like beliefs flying around like flies that you just want to swat, you know? They're flying around in your mind going like, I'm not good enough. And all we know to sort of counter that is to either shout louder, I am good enough, or to just like try and ignore it or suppress it. Or extroverts sometimes aren't even aware that they're there. You know, introverts a lot more. And I'm not condemning extroverts. I happen to be one. Just within my practice, sometimes it just really come across extroverts that have no idea that these beliefs got created. So what we would do in shadow guidance is we would follow the same process of belief creation, which is essentially just conclusions. That's how the mind creates beliefs, is just through a process of conclusion making, you know, if this and this, then that. And what we do is we collect evidence to find a positive belief, a positive conclusion, and it's a specific word that jolts the person. You know, it's a charge, it's a positive charge. So let's say a person's got a belief, I'm not good enough. We would find evidence to the contrary and find a specific word that resonates on every single level that the person feels like, yes, that's the word. And once we've got that, let's say it could be, I'm awesome, or I'm epic, or I'm amazing, or it's usually not a simple antonym like I'm not good enough, I am good enough. It's not a polarity. So we find the right polarity, and it's got to be, it's so specific. So while I'm speaking simple English here to people, it's really specific around the charge. You know, these are metaphysics. So just like a battery feels a charge, you know, it doesn't feel a charge, but it emits a charge. There's a negative charge going there. The human being has to have that negative and positive charge. But for us, it's emotions. So it's really almost surgical to find the right word that causes that charge. But once it's there, you've got a negative pole and you've got a positive pole in place. There's a ritual that I teach the clients that I work with to sort of cement this and deal with the discomfort of the negative belief and pump up the pleasure of the positive belief. And this happens over time, and the results are fantastic because intrinsic vibration gets raised. By dealing with these core beliefs, intrinsic vibration raises, and it results literally in people breaking through to their next bandwidth, right? Life exists for the human being in bandwidths, right? But not one bandwidth like a radio, but rather a bracket of frequencies called a bandwidth, where you have a lower end, that's when you feel low, and a higher end where you feel on a high. Now, you don't need shadow guidance to go to the highest part of your bandwidth. You just got to be a responsible human being, eat good food, work out, enjoy life, to the best, the best life that you can, whatever, and just feel good. And you'll be at the top of your bandwidth, the top of your wave, so to speak. But with shadow guidance, this work propels a person to their next bandwidth, where your next level just happens. It's a natural expression of that bandwidth. I explain it almost like trees, that at a certain bandwidth, if you're an apple tree, you'll know that because you'll have apples. There's a part of the self that the person's not aware of. It's called the being. But if you wanted oranges, you can't become an orange, so to speak, by being an apple tree. You've got to find a way to become an orange tree. Once you're an orange tree, you just produce oranges as a natural state of your being. So to use that metaphor, I help people transform into different trees, and the primary modality of my philosophy of transformation really is the shadow guidance that works according to the laws of metaphysics that I just explained.
Wow. My head's swimming, but I mean, it's fabulous. I can totally see how reprogramming the source of creation, which is the mind, engaging that with the emotion would create powerful transformation. So how does someone work with you? What have you got going on that people can get connected with?
Thank you for asking that. I currently offer two primary services, which I'm sort of busy with, and that's what takes up my time. And that is team coaching and then private client coaching. The private client coaching, it's not for all, just based on the price tag, but the team coaching is done in a group of 10. We have group conferencing that happens on a Sunday all around the world, so different time zones for different places, different countries. There are 12 of them because it's a 12-week course, and the video gets uploaded into a private Facebook group, so that if you have to travel or can't make the session, you don't miss it. You can catch up. And the group stays connected through live videos and check-ins, weekly check-ins. And that at the moment is going for $1,000 for the next course in April, and it's going to go up a little bit by about 35%. After that, it'll be my 6th team, and I have lots of testimonials on my Facebook page if anybody wants to go see that. I'm also happy to speak on any of the topics that I coach, or any of the topics that are on my website. If anybody would like to sign up for my course, I've actually got a new website that I've just registered, and that is shadowguidance.com. And if anybody's interested, they can go take a look at that. If they're interested in my course, they can have a look at shadowguidance.com and follow the steps on the website.
Fabulous. You are doing amazing things in the world, and I'm so glad that you're here at this time when there's so much shifting going on to help. Is that your mission, to help people shift to their potential?
My mission, in the most broad sense, is to seek and teach applicable wisdom. In fact, if I had to say it the way it gets formulated in the Mankind Project, is that I create an abundant world of unconditional love through seeking and teaching applicable wisdom, and that would encompass coaching, speaking, making videos. Through doing that, my intention is to raise the vibration of humanity. I teach people to raise their vibration. That's all I do. Once upon a time, it used to be about genres of coaching. It used to be about life coaching and the nuances. It used to be about performance coaching and the nuances there, and then the same in business and executive and leadership coaching. But the one thing that remained the same thing throughout all of these genres of coaching was that I would address self-value. That would be the one thing that I would address is what do you deserve in life? What do you believe that you deserve in life? If self-confidence is the male of doing, self-value is the female of receiving. Yeah, and the easiest way for a person to understand what self-value really is on an applicable level is it's what you're willing to tolerate. The lower your self-value, the more nonsense or stuff that you're not happy with you'll be willing to tolerate. And the higher your self-value, the less you'll be willing to tolerate in all areas of life. So when the self-value goes up, that's your vibration. Metaphysically speaking, by the way, self-value is not just how much you love yourself. Self-value is how much brightness you allow your light to emit. How bright do you allow your light to shine? Because human lights don't just light other candles like normal lights do. Human light gets shone to other human beings. And you've got to give yourself permission to do that. It's a permission thing. You want to shine your light to 10 people. You want to collect your revenue or your income from 10 people. There's very specific marketing efforts that you will allow yourself to embark upon in order to shine your light to 10 people and reap the rewards, the return, the value of serving 10 people. But if you gave yourself permission to serve and shine your light to 100 people, then those marketing efforts would be different from the 10, but you'd have to allow yourself. You'd have to sort of have the sort of guts, if you want to call it that. And if you wanted to do 1 million people, that would be very, very different. And it's a different level of allowing. It's how bright you're going to shine your light. How many lives are you going to touch? But as that happens, vibration raises as well. Because the brighter you shine your light, the more lives you touch and the higher your life experience, because there's a reciprocation for that. The law of reciprocation, the energy has to be looped. So the more you give out, the more you get, the higher your vibration, the less you tolerate, the more abundant you are. It's so many aspects of this one thing that we understand as one thing, but it's so multidimensional because we are multidimensional beings living life one area at a time, so to speak.
You are such an inspiration. Wow, I'm just sitting over here with the biggest smile on my face. You just really light up the world. I'm so glad you're doing what you do.
Thank you so much.
Is there a parting thought that you'd like to leave us with today if you had to boil it all down to one thing?
If I had to boil it down to one thing. To answer your question, I've had to choose between 3 things. The one thing was a choice of 3 things. So I'll tell the 3 things very, very quickly. The 3 things were your peace is the most important thing to you. The other thing was your inner child is the most important relationship. And the last thing was enjoy your life as it is. And I'm going to choose the 3rd one. Fall in love with your life the way it is right now. Cut off all of your ambitions. Not saying dump all of your goals. You need goals just to have something to do every day. But don't want anything that you don't have. Imagine that and this may sound morbid, but it's really true. It's the only way a person can feel in the moment. Imagine that this is your last week on this earth, and that you and all of humanity is going to go, but nobody knows it, right? Fall in love with your life. Cut off all your ambitions. Be grateful for everything that you have, but fall in love with your life. Become infatuated with your life like a child. Do whatever you need to do to make that happen in the next week, and your life will change, I promise. You don't need to know anything else.
Wow. That sounds fabulous. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you've shared with us today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking the personal transformational journey that opened you to be able to take all of us on our personal transformational journeys. And thank you for being on the show. I hope you'll come back in the future, and I will definitely be staying connected with you and following your work.
Awesome. Cheryl, thank you so much for having me on the show. Thank you so much for the work that you do in providing people like me a platform to get the message out, because messengers like me and you, we share a devotion. We share a devotion to get this work out and the information out. And if it wasn't for people like you, we just wouldn't be able to do it as well. So thank you and bless you. I'm truly humbled.
Oh, thank you. I feel that in my heart. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to hear from you. If you enjoyed the show, tell me what you love about it. Tell us what you want to hear more of. Just send me a quick note, info@journeyofpossibilities.com. And we'll see you next week on Exploring Possibilities.